Raider personnel.
Raiders. In your heart, in your mind, releasing your favorite corner.
Heck yeah, Jack Jones out of
Uh,
here, boy. Out of here,
Jack.
Jack Jones. And
Yep,
then we
Jackety
got
Jack.
Geno's presser. We're gonna talk about Geno's presser real quick. And what
Gino.
you think about what he said with Pete Carroll there in the press conference. I think both those guys they almost fell in love there. And then of
Oh yeah,
course,
they were holding
two
hands.
less than 2 weeks, buddy. I'm super excited. It's less than 2 weeks for the NFL draft, where we're gonna get probably Shador, I think. So
Yeah, we'll see.
well,
We'll
let's
see.
start with
We'll
Jack
see.
Jones, man. Jack Jones released. That's
Jack
a fan
Jones.
favorite, another fan favorite that everybody's bitching and moaning about. I think it's not a bad idea. A small guy, really all over the damn field. Not really doing his job, getting burnt, getting touchdowns, like 10
Yeah.
touchdowns allowed last year.
Oh
So
yeah. At least, yeah.
He's
Yeah,
done.
he is done. I mean, I was a big fan last year. Not this past year,
Mhm.
the last year when he first with
Yeah,
AP.
yeah, the stare
Because I
down.
liked his aggressiveness. Yeah, exactly. I like the aggressiveness. I do like, aggressive corners, but you can't be always aggressive. And when
Yeah,
we first got him, he wasn't playing much with the Pats. He was like in Bill
yeah,
Belichick's, just like, he doesn't want to really care. So
yeah.
AP brought him in. AP knew how to talk to him, knew how to get
Right.
the best out of him. So now that he was starting, there's actually a lot more tape out there, and we saw the
Hmm.
second season. He was getting burnt.
Yeah.
He was falling for pump fakes. He was being too aggressive. So it kind of makes sense why that's the route they took.
Right.
But and the other thing is, like we said a bunch of times, Pete Carroll likes the big corners, like the physical corners, like corners who like to tackle.
Exactly.
We remember we've had a bunch of games where we were just like, what was he doing? What kind of tackle was that? Was he
Right.
grabbing his
Right.
shoelaces? So and then and then Pete likes him 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'1". He likes him big and strong. And
Yeah.
so we had his time. I thought we were gonna keep him because we were losing corners and we needed that
Yeah.
veteran presence.
Yeah.
But we do have Stokes. We do have other veterans. They came from really good systems as well. I believe he came from the Packers system. So it's
Yeah.
still not like he came from Cleveland or Tennessee
Right.
or one of these places. So yeah, I'm gonna miss him, but I also know what we were getting out of him. It wasn't
Yeah.
what we are looking for.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. I
So
mean, I was concerned over just losing a cornerback, right? Like, who's going to take his
yeah.
spot? Yeah, Stokes is,
Hmm.
he's not really a consistent player, and that's what worries me as
Right.
well. Like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
good to play the position, but can he
Hmm.
be? Is he going to have an off year? Now, again, Green Bay was on and
Right.
off, and then not really knowing what they were going to do with the organization, etc.
Yeah.
But now that he's there, and I think he'll do fine with Graham's scheme. And then
Yeah.
you got Lonnie Johnson, bro. Lonnie Johnson.
Yeah.
So he's back there as
I
well. So
mean,
some good
yeah.
veteran or mid type level journeyman, I should say, right? Some journeyman
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the team. So
Yeah, and Lonnie Johnson, he has the speed, so that's
mhm.
what I was a big fan of his.
Yeah,
I am not mad at those signings. Stokes, he's going to be the veteran presence, and
right.
so it's obviously Richardson's going to be a starter, and then whoever else we have on there, obviously no more Hobbs, no more Jack, so it's going to be definitely a
Yeah,
different secondary position. It's pretty much the whole entire secondary. Only
yeah,
Mao is the only one that really came back.
yeah. Polamalu,
Everybody
yeah,
else is going to be either new to the team or new starters.
yeah,
So it's going to be interesting, but at the same time, that's where our D line needs to come up and step up. We need those pass rushers. We need that quarterback to feel the pressure,
yeah.
and give our guys a chance.
Right.
We got veteran linebackers as well, so hopefully we're not missing too many tackles where we need our corners to make tackles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
the draft, man, the
Make big
draft is supposed to
plays.
be really good, for corners and for receivers and linebackers and ends. So
Yeah,
it's running back. So it's like we could definitely make some noise. I feel like with Spike Tech, I get the feeling of he's more of a trade back than a trade forward kind of guy,
yeah.
but you never know. You never know what could
Right.
come up to you, what kind of offer. So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll be all right.
hopefully we figure that one out, man. But
Yeah.
also we got Geno's presser where Geno. I love what he said. I
About
love what he
time.
was talking about. He said I'll walk through a wall for Pete. You know what I mean? So That
Yeah.
says a
And
lot,
then
bro.
Pete was
You don't
like,
really, yeah. Run through a wall
yeah,
for
man.
Pete that says a lot, man. That says I don't
Yeah.
think you know anybody just says that just to say that, man. Especially
Right. Yeah.
at the news. So
I
yeah,
mean,
what are your
especially
thoughts on that?
Gino, man. I mean, you understand how Gino came out. At first
Yeah,
rounder, everybody was labeled him as a
right.
bust. He had to
Yeah,
sit behind Russell Wilson, sitting there just waiting and waiting. And then Pete Carroll was just like, hey, was sitting there like, hey, you're gonna get your
right,
chance. And he
right.
gave him the chance. He didn't like lie to him or anything. He told him, he saw the work that he was putting in, and he gave him the chance, and then he didn't look back. So
Yeah,
he's obviously there's a tremendous amount of respect that he has for Pete Carroll because he probably feels like Pete Carroll was part of his growth back into the league. And
yeah.
instead of being
Of
a
course,
backup career backup quarterback, he's top 10 money making quarterback in the league
bro.
and
Yeah, for
playing for
real.
one of the most not established franchises, but one of the most famous franchises, man. Like it's up there. It's like Cowboys, Raiders, Niners,
Yeah.
Jets. Well, not really Jets. Jets suck. But it's so and everything I've ever heard about him was like the locker room loves him. He was a
Right.
great leader. He's humble.
Yep.
And other players look up to like the adversity that he went through. Like this man,
Yeah.
was up at the top of the game in college and
Yeah.
then in the pros, and
Yeah.
then right back up. So,
And let's
people
talk
will
about
see
his
them and be like,
college
I
years.
can do
Let's
that.
talk about his
I
college
can
years
do
real quick because I don't know how you miss out and make this guy a backup because 4,000 yards, 4,385 yards in the 2011
that.
season, taking his team to an Orange Bowl and beating
Yeah.
Clemson. And Clemson typically wins his bowls games. At
Clemson's
least
a
they get there
powerhouse in
often.
football. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And then not only that,
Yeah.
against Clemson, getting 70 points in that game. Now, of course,
Yeah.
that's not all him. That's team effort. And then in
Right. Right.
2012, he had a 656-yard game against Baylor that had scored 8 touchdowns. That is
Hmm.
tremendous. So the
That is
guy
killer.
has clear talent, bro. I don't know how you
Oh
you
yeah.
make this guy a backup. I mean, sure, he had a tough time with the
Yeah.
Jets.
Hmm.
But I mean, look at the bounce back, right? Seattle, right? I think he
Yeah.
was comeback player of the year that in
Oh
22.
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Comeback player of the year for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
dude.
was like on everybody's radar. He
Yeah,
really did come up. And that's what
right.
makes it more impressive. He did it a second year in a row because
Yeah,
was it like Sam Darnold like out of nowhere he was trash and then boom he had
right.
one great year, and now
Yeah,
we don't know. We're gonna see. And then
yeah,
he's only making like 1 or 2 million less than I think Gino's making. So it's not like they're doing a
mhm,
big difference. It's like for me it would have made
yeah.
more sense to keep the guy. But yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
look, it's all about your coaches, the system, and stuff like that. In college, it's easier to do
Yeah,
points like that because maybe it's a more spread, not a whole, NFL offense type.
yeah,
And you know, man. I mean, we personally felt how bad it is to have a bad coach or a bad
yeah,
OC.
yeah,
And then we had one where we had both. So
yeah,
it's like that really
yeah,
matters. Pete Carroll, there's coaches out there that adjust systems for the quarterback. They don't
yeah,
just say, hey, quarterback, play my style. They make adjustments. Like, okay, this is how you play. I mean, the language and what you're trying to do is still there,
yeah.
but you adjust how you get to those plays
Right,
with the
right.
quarterback. And Pete
Yeah,
Carroll did that. And then Pete Carroll has a more different offense. He's not going to be out there slanging it left and right. He wants to run the ball.
yeah,
He wants to win with defense. He wants to have
right.
that. So, the style that we're not asking Geno Smith to do a lot. Depending on who we draft, if we get a Shanta Genti, that's going to
Yeah,
be a really big part of our offense.
yeah,
And Geno Smith doing play actions, really accurate, not much of a runner, only when he has to. But
yeah.
you get him out there in that corner and you get Brock Bowers running a post route and nobody can stop him, boom,
Yeah,
touchdown. Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
it can
And
happen.
and
And
let's
Chip
talk
Kelly
about
talked about it.
yeah, exactly. Chip
Yeah.
Kelly's
Yeah, is
offense,
that what
man.
we're going to
How
go into?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is probably where he can. It's either bust right or he's going to take it to the sky because Chip Kelly is going to create an offense that's got motion, that's going to create
Mm-hmm.
these little small
Yeah.
deke and dunks. And if we get a wide receiver in the draft that's good, he's got speed. Or not
Yeah.
even that, just even with say with Trey Tucker and DJ Turner, those guys got the speed, right? They can open up the
Yeah.
backfield, and
Yeah.
Gino has the arm for that. And then of course
Yep.
you got Brock over there covered in the middle or on the slants. The little quick
Hmm.
routes.
Yep.
I think for sure can open up this offense, and Gino, what he brings, right? The quick decision making. I
Hmm.
think for
Oh yeah.
sure adapts
Oh
to
yeah.
Chip Kelly's offense. So for
For
sure,
sure.
man, the upside.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I
of
mean
upside
that's
here.
definitely. I mean that's one of the things that Chip Kelly said in his interview when he first started is like, you have to adjust to the quarterback you have.
Right.
You're not really a good OC if you're not doing that. You're not putting the team in the best position if you're not doing
Yeah.
that. So and exactly the type of offense he wants to run is what Geno Smith is good at. The accuracy, short,
Yeah.
intermediate, slants, boom, boom, boom. And that's where I feel like Trey Tucker will really blow up because a lot of people like the potential of Trey Tucker, but it's one of those like it's going to take him a few years.
Yeah.
But if he can get Tucker like the ball where it needs to be, where he could just catch it in rhythm and just taking off
Yeah.
at a really good amount of speed, where he could just
Right.
go full blast and take off. And then Jacoby Myers, man, one of the best hands that we got in the team. And
Yep.
then Brock
Yep.
Bowers, just elite tight end. Every might be the best tight end in the league this year. So
Right.
when you have weapons like that, and then we're assuming we're getting Ashton Genty, and if we're not
Yeah.
getting Ashton Genty, then we're probably getting T Mac. And then still we
Right.
have the big
Yeah.
receiver, the sure hands, the elite
Right.
tight end.
Right.
And then we just have to build out from there. Our offense will be set, work on the defense. Obviously, we're going to need a corner. So, but yeah, Chip Kelly's, he doesn't need you to be running all over the place, play action, quick slants, get the ball out of my hands, make quick decisions, and then attack it. He's going to be
Yeah.
looking for those angles and verticals before, I mean, the posts and comebacks before he's going,
Yeah.
really deep. And then, we don't have anybody for that yet. Like Trey Tucker and TJ Turner are fast, but they're small. So, you usually we typically want a big receiver, or not big receiver, at least 6'1", 6 feet and with some speed on him to go deep. Um,
Yeah.
but, folks like Tyreek Hill, that's who I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of like Turner and
Yeah.
Trey.
Yeah.
Catch
Exactly.
the ball and
Exactly.
then take off,
Take
do a
off.
juke
Yep.
move and he's gone. Exactly. And Chip Kelly's offense is for that. And Chip Kelly's smart. A
Yeah.
lot of people might be worried of the style, the no huddle, but in the
Yeah.
end, it's still Pete Carroll's team. Pete Carroll's a veteran. He can understand when his players are like getting worn out because he's a players
Right.
coach. You know what I'm saying? He knows what the players are like going through or what
Right.
they're on their mind. And he's gonna be like, Chip, what the hell you doing, man? We're trying to win games here, not burn
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
before week 10. Yeah. So, that was kind of issues with John Gruden. He was
Right.
overworking them in practice, and when you saw it in the
So
game, it would be great game the first three quarters, and then the fourth quarter
yeah.
was just tired.
Everybody's
Everybody's
tired out.
breathing
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So I have great faith in Geno Smith and Chip Kelly. He might be flirting with
Yeah.
5,000 yards. Depending on who
Hopefully,
we
shit.
have on the
That'd
offense.
be dope.
So
That'd be sick as
yeah.
hell, man. And you're right. And it comes to the trade. It comes to the draft. It comes to what we're gonna do after, maybe the sixth round. Now I saw a recent mock draft, from the NFL. I forgot who it was, but they had us moving up the draft to number one and getting Travis Hunter,
Oh
and that
my
seemed
God.
very lovely. But is Rhett Lewis. And
Yeah.
he admits in this article that he doesn't really do drafts, but he had us moving up to number two actually and getting Travis Hunter.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean, it doesn't seem bad.
Right, right, right. I
Considering
just,
what we just mentioned.
yeah. I mean, I would personally love it. I would love it getting Travis Hunter and having
Yeah,
him play corner with some receiver.
yeah,
But number one, wait, I know you said number two, but number one wouldn't happen because Titans are definitely getting a quarterback unless they want to take a chance that Sanders will be there at number six. Then or they
yeah.
like Milrow or somebody else.
It'd be the Browns. The
And then
Browns
the
would take.
Browns,
Yeah,
it'll be tough to talk him out of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. So they know
yeah.
if they push back, they're not getting Travis. They're not getting either of those two because the Giants, from my understanding, are
They're
gonna
gonna take
go
Abdul.
whoever's left of
Oh,
Abdul and
really?
Travis. Yeah. So they're set on those two. Unless the Titans go Abdul or Travis and then or like our trade happens that we trade up, let's say with number 1 and we get Travis Hunter and then Abdul Carter goes number 2, then the Giants have to figure something else out. But yeah, that would be awesome. But I don't see the Browns, like, they need help, but they got a solid team. And the Giants, they have the quarterback. They need
Yeah.
pass rushers and they need a corner. So
But
it's
what
like
if Sanders is still there? You said the pass rushers.
yeah.
They need a cornerback, but they also need the quarterback, right? They also would take Sanders, I think, at number 2.
They would. It's just tricky because they signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. You typically you sign one of those two,
That's the Giants,
and then you get the quarterback.
The Giants signed Russell Wilson. Well, I'm talking about the Browns. If the Browns,
I thought you were talking about the Giants getting Shedeur Sanders. Yeah,
no.
But yeah, the Browns could do that too. Yeah, the Browns could do it too. But they could also be like, we could get Jalen Milroe, or we can get a quarterback next year. Like Deshaun Watson is not gonna play this year. Yeah. Maybe we're going to be bad enough that we'll get a top 1 or 2 pick and go from there. Yeah. Or they really like Milroe or Dart. Somebody they'll trade back up in the first round, and they think will slip to the second. Because if they think Shedeur is going to slip, then chances are the other ones will slip. A couple picks or not. So that could be the case. I think they'll be foolish to not get Sanders. The Browns, they need somebody like that. They need somebody that can handle Deshaun Watson, whenever he comes back. Like, hey, this is our guy. We don't need Watson.
Yeah.
And then he has the confidence, he kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
The confidence and stuff like that. And he did good with the Browns. They just screwed him over in the end. Look at him now with Tampa.
Yeah, with Tampa.
And look where the Browns are at.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty bad.
They're paying all that money for a quarterback that can't play. And you remember he didn't play the first year with them either because he was suspended. So, they've been paying this guy money to not play.
Exactly.
So yeah, they would be fools not to get him. Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't wear a Browns jersey if I was a Browns fan.
No.
I couldn't. I'd be very disappointed.
You'd be like one of the guys that have the brown bag with the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah. But I would never. That's why I don't fucking root for the Browns.
Yep, exactly. But
man, that's a draft. That's what could happen. Travis Hunter, the possibility you can cover 2 spots there, the cornerback and the wide receiver position. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if they would try trade up. Like you said, Spytek is a guy that would go back, not forward, right?
Exactly. And you kind of imagine what would cost us to move up. It would probably cost us a pretty good amount.
Right.
Not as bad as somebody else, but from 2 to 6, you start putting yourself outside of generational players. They don't need a Genti, unless they're trying to go after somebody like Mason Graham or a corner or something like that. But if you're going after a corner, why not get Travis Hunter? Unless it's that thing that we're talking about that they don't want to argue with him about what position or only playing one position. So, you don't want to upset one of your better players. But that seems like a really
minor thing. That's ridiculous.
It's the Browns.
That's true. That is true. We just mentioned that, right? We just said the Browns suck.
Horrible.
Yeah, but
I would like to say, I would love Travis. Travis Hunter.
Like and comment if you want Travis.
Who do you want drafted?
Who do you want?
Who do you want? What would you give up to get Travis?
What are your thoughts on Gino as well? Sheesh, he's gonna do well, but I know you got something to say.
At least for 2 years.
Radar. Per se.
Raiders.